A scream split the backyard like a gunshot. Sharp, sudden, impossible to ignore.
You let her do this!
"Get your filthy hands off my
no
stepdaughter,
choice.
Vanessa," Sterling shrieked, pointing a manicured finger like a weapon. On the grass below, Rosa Diaz, quiet housekeeper, worn blue uniform smeared with dirt, was on her knees, arms locked around 7-year-old Lily Hart, the blind little girl shaking like a trapped bird. Then the glass doors flew open. Graham Hart, the millionaire widower, stormed outside, still clutching his phone, expecting staff drama. Instead, he saw something that punched the air out of his chest, his daughter hiding in Rosa's arms. Not his. Vanessa's rage vanished in an instant, replaced by trembling victimhood. She accused Rosa of screaming at Lily and stealing her emerald brooch, the one Graham had gifted for their engagement. Graham demanded answers. Rosa didn't argue. She whispered, "Breathe with me. 1, 2. Because Lily's sobs were turning into panic. When Rosa pulled the brooch from her apron pocket, Graham's face hardened. Evidence? Simple. Damning. He fired her on the spot. But Vanessa didn't stop there. She turned it into a public execution, calling staff to witness the thief. Lily, blind but not deaf, cried out. Vanessa gave it to her. "I heard it," Vanessa snapped, grabbed Lily's arm, and Rosa lunged to protect the child. Security dragged Rosa away. The gate slammed, and Lily collapsed, seizing foaming, turning purple. Vanessa stepped back, disgusted. Graham froze, until Rosa burst back in and saved Lily's life with practiced precision. Then Rosa lifted Lily's sleeve. Bruises. Finger marks, burns. Graham finally saw the truth and the monster he'd almost married. Graham's knees hit the marble like his fortune meant nothing. He stared at the purple bruises blooming across Lily's arm, the crescent nail marks hidden on the inside, places a clumsy fall would never touch. His jaw tightened so hard a muscle jumped in his cheek. "Explain it," he said, voice low and dangerous. Vanessa Sterling tried to laugh, but it came out thin and frantic. "She bumps into furniture, Graham. She's blind, she..." Rosa Diaz didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply turned Lily's arm a few inches, letting the light do the talking. "Furniture doesn't leave fingerprints," she said, "and doors don't pinch a child where no one can see." Vanessa took a step back, then another. Her silk blouse looked suddenly ridiculous, like a costume at the end of a bad play. Graham's eyes tracked her hands. Those perfect nails, those rings. Hands that never worked, hands that had been hurting his daughter while he signed contracts and chased silence. His chest heaved once, like he'd finally inhaled after months underwater. Vanessa snapped, cornered. "You don't understand what it's like," she hissed. "She's a burden. She ruins everything. I didn't sign up to babysit your..." "Don't," Graham cut in, the word cracking like a whip. The room went still. Even the guards shifted, unsure which side. They were on now. Graham stepped between Vanessa and the stairs. "Get out," he said. "Right now." Vanessa's eyes flashed. "You'll regret this. Society will laugh at you alone with your blind kid and your maid." Graham didn't blink. "Let them laugh. At least my daughter will be safe." Upstairs, Lily stirred, whimpering in her sleep. Rosa moved instantly, cradling her like a shield. Graham watched, really watched, and in that look something broke. Not his pride, his blindness. Graham didn't chase Vanessa. He didn't need to. The real emergency was already halfway up the stairs, Rosa carrying Lily like she weighed nothing, whispering steady words into her ear as if her voice alone could hold the world together. In the dim master bedroom, Lily clung to Rosa's hand, trembling even in sleep. Graham hovered at the foot of the bed, useless in a way no boardroom had ever exposed. His throat tightened. "Rosa." "Don't stand up," he said raw. "Please, stay." Rosa's eyes met his, no fear, no victory. Just exhaustion and truth. Graham swallowed. Then he did the one thing money never taught him. He knelt beside the bed, lowering himself to Lily's level, like a man finally learning where love lives. "I'm sorry," he whispered, not to the child first, but to the woman who'd been her shield. "I called you a thief. I let her." Rosa's voice was quiet, sharp. "I can take insults, sir. Lily can't." That night, Graham stayed. No calls, no meetings, just a chair by the bed counting Lily's breaths like they were gold. 3 weeks later, the hospital smelled like bleach and second chances. The surgeon's face was grave. The procedure worked, he said, but she's waking up panicked. If she thrashes, she could lose her sight permanently. She needs someone she trusts. Graham looked at Rosa. Go. Rosa stepped back. No, you go. She needs her father, not her employee. Graham's hands shook as he pulled on the sterile gown. Behind the recovery room door, Lily screamed, "Don't touch me, Vanessa." Graham leaned close, voice trembling, then steady. "It's me, sweetheart. Monsters are gone. I'm here." And for the first time, Lily stopped fighting the dark. 4 days later, the mansion felt like a church before a miracle. Curtains drawn, voices lowered, every breath measured. Lily Hart sat in a velvet chair with oversized sunglasses resting in her lap, her small fingers gripping Graham's like an anchor. Behind her stood Rosa Diaz, one hand on Lily's shoulder, steady as a lighthouse. Dr. Patel lifted the surgical scissors. "Ready, sweetheart?" "I'm scared," Lily whispered. Graham leaned in forehead, almost touching hers. "Listen to me. If you see, it's amazing. If you don't, it changes nothing. I love you exactly as you are. Not fixed, not better. Just you." Something in Lily's shoulders loosened, like her body had been waiting years to hear that sentence. Snip. Snip. The bandages fell away in soft, white loops, landing on the floor like shed skin. "Keep your eyes closed," the doctor warned. "Open them slowly." Lily blinked into the dim light and gasped. "It burns." "That's normal," Rosa murmured. "Breathe, baby." Lily blinked again. The darkness didn't vanish into crystal clarity. Nothing dramatic, no movie-perfect glow. But the black began to break apart into color. Shapes. Shadows. A world painted in watercolor instead of night. She stretched out a cautious hand, searching. Graham froze, tears spilling without permission as her fingertips found his cheeks, his nose, his stubble, the wetness on his skin. Lily's lips parted. "Daddy," she whispered. "Yes," Graham choked. I see you," Lily said, voice shaking with wonder. "You're blurry, like a cloud with a beard, but you're there." A laugh and a sob collided in Graham's throat as he gathered her gently into his arms. Rosa covered her mouth, crying silently. Then Lily turned toward the familiar patch of blue. "Rosa, you're beautiful," she said. And in that moment, the house finally learned how to breathe. The next morning, Graham did something the staff had never seen him do. He gathered everyone in the living room, not to give orders, but to draw a line in the sand. The gardeners, the cooks, the drivers, every pair of eyes stayed locked on Lily, still fragile, still healing, now blinking behind her pink frames, like the world was brand new. Graham stepped forward and took Rosa's hand. Not a polite handshake, not a tip, a public, unmistakable statement. "Rosa doesn't work for me anymore," he said. A ripple of confusion moved through the room until he tightened his grip and finished. "She works with me." He turned slightly so Lily could hear every word. "From today on, Rosa Diaz is the head of this household, and if anything happens to me, she is Lily's legal guardian. Her word is final. If she says it's daylight at midnight, then it's daylight. Understood?" Heads nodded fast. Nobody dared to blink. Rosa's throat worked like she was swallowing a lifetime of being told to stay small. "Sir, I only want to take care of the child," she whispered. "And you will," Graham said softer now. "But you'll do it with dignity, not in a uniform, not from the shadows." He handed her a folder trust papers for Lily, with Rosa named as co-administrator. Then he crouched beside his daughter and kissed her forehead. "We're a team now," he said. Lily reached out, finding Rosa's fingers, and then her father's, and laced them together in her lap like a knot nobody could untie. "Team," she repeated, smiling. Outside sunlight spilled across the garden where the nightmare began. Inside, for the first time in years, the mansion felt like a home. 3 months later, Vanessa Sterling tried to walk back into the world she thought she owned. The country club doors swung open and she glided in like nothing happened. Chin high, lipstick, perfect. A designer dress that looked expensive until you noticed the frayed hem. She leaned toward the front desk with a practiced smile. "My table. You know where I sit." The receptionist didn't move. "I'm sorry, Ms. Sterling," he said, voice tight. "You're not on the list." Vanessa's smile cracked. "That's ridiculous. Graham Hart practically runs this place." A calm voice cut through the lobby like a judge's gavel. "Not anymore." Graham stood there in a dark suit, not a social visit, an execution. Beside him, his attorney briefcase in hand. No yelling, no theatrics, just paperwork and consequences. Vanessa's eyes darted around, catching whispers, stares, phones sliding out of purses. Her worst nightmare, an audience. "This is harassment," she hissed, lowering her voice. "You don't have proof." Graham didn't blink. Medical reports, witness statements, and a full audit of the charity funds you redirected. He let the words sit. Heavy. Final. "You have 24 hours to disappear. If you come near my daughter or Rosa again, we stop being civil." Vanessa's knees buckled not from remorse, but from panic. Reputation was her oxygen, and he'd just turned off the tank. Later that afternoon, back home, the garden looked nothing like the battlefield it used to be. A swing hung from the old oak. Wildflowers spread in messy patches. Lily-pink glasses on face lifted to the sun laughed when Graham sat on the grass and got dirt on his hands. Rosa watched them quiet. Not a servant, a guardian, and for the first time, Graham didn't feel rich. He felt right. 1 year after the night, everything shattered. The house sounded different. Not quiet, not polished, alive. In the living room, balloons bobbed against the ceiling fan. Kids dashed through the hall like tiny storms. A chocolate cake, homemade still warm, sat on the table with crooked frosting that looked like love in a hurry. Lily Hart, now 8, ran in her bright pink glasses, laughing so hard she almost forgot to breathe. She tripped, caught herself on the rug, popped back up, and kept going. No panic, no freezing, no whispered fear of getting in trouble. Across the room, Graham Hart poured lemonade for a line of parent sleeves, rolled up hair, a little messy, smiling like a man who finally remembers what time is for. An old business partner leaned in, voice low. "Graham, people say you walked away from a major deal to take your daughter to Disney. Aren't you afraid of losing status?" Graham glanced toward the backyard window, where Rosa Diaz was wiping frosting off Lily's cheek, while Lily giggled and tried to smear it right back. Graham's smile didn't fade. "Status," he repeated, like the word tasted strange. "I used to have millions, and come home to a mansion where my own child flinched at my footsteps." He nodded toward Lily's laughter. "Now I have fewer zeros, and a house full of noise, dirt on the floor, and peace." Lily sprinted over and threw her arms around him. "Daddy, Rosa says if I break the piñata, I get the grand prize." Graham lifted her spining once. "Sweetheart, you already are the grand prize." Rosa stepped into the frame beside them. Not a shadow, family. As the last kid spilled out the front door and the balloons sagged toward the floor, the mansion settled into a softer kind of quiet, the kind that feels earned. Paper plates, scattered toys, a forgotten party hat near the couch. Graham Hart stood by the fireplace and looked at the framed photo Rosa had insisted on taking before anyone left Lily in the middle. Frosting on her nose, one hand gripping Graham's, the other clutching Rosa's 3 smiles, caught mid-laugh like proof that nightmares don't get the final word. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. He just picked up a tiny sweater from the rug, folded it, and set it on the armchair like it mattered, because now it did. Rosa walked in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel, and Lily padded after her in sock-feet glasses slightly crooked, humming the lullaby that once only belonged to fear. Lily looked up at Graham. "Daddy," she said, simple and steady, "will you be here when I wake up?" Graham crouched so his eyes met hers. Every morning he promised, even on the hard ones. Later, when the lights were off and the house finally breathed, Graham stared at the dark ceiling and understood something that used to terrify him. Blindness wasn't always about eyes. It was about ignoring the people who loved you, until you almost lose them. And if this story hit something in you, don't wait for a scream in the garden. Go be someone's safe place, tonight. Months later, people still asked Graham Hart the same question, in that half-curious, half-judgmental tone, usually over lunch at some expensive place with quiet music and louder egos. So what happened to Vanessa Sterling? Graham would just sip his coffee and let the silence answer first. Then he'd say it plain, she's gone. Legally, socially, permanently. No flair, no vengeance speech, just a boundary that could finally hold. The lawsuit did its work. The club doors stayed closed to her. The charity accounts were audited. And every time Graham signed another page, he pictured Lily's bruises and remembered how close he came to signing away his child instead. Back home, the proof of change wasn't in paperwork. It was in the small things. Rosa Diaz teaching Lily how to plant petunias with gentle hands. Graham sitting on the grass in linen pants, dirt under his nails, pretending he knew what he was doing until Lily laughed and said, "Daddy, you're planting the flower upside down." Rosa would cover her smile like it was a secret, and Graham would laugh too, because for the first time in his life, he didn't need to look powerful. He needed to be present. One afternoon, Graham placed a small carved wooden box on the patio table. Inside was an old iron key, heavy, honest, worn smooth by time. He pressed it into Rosa's palm. "This is the original master key," he said. "It opens every door in this house." Rosa's fingers curled around it like she was afraid it might disappear. Lily leaned in, squinting through those bright pink frames, and whispered, "That means Rosa is our safe door." Graham nodded, eyes wet. "Exactly. And if you're still watching, remember this. Wealth can buy a house. Only love keeps the dark out." A year turned into a rhythm, and that rhythm became a home. Graham Hart didn't go back to the man he used to be, the one who hid behind phone calls and important meetings. He started doing the small, unglamorous things that never make headlines but save lives. He learned Lily's bedtime routine. He memorized the way she liked her carrots, raw and crunchy, not cooked. He sat through therapy appointments not as a checkbook but as a dad with his hand on her shoulder whispering, "I'm right here." And Rosa Diaz. She didn't move up. She finally moved into the light where she belonged. No uniform. No hiding. Just authority earned the hard way. The staff didn't just respect her, they listened because they'd seen what happens when someone mistakes kindness for weakness. Some nights, Lily would wander into the hallway, half asleep, glasses off, hair messy, the old fear knocking softly at her chest. She'd call out, "Daddy." Graham would answer before the fear could grow. "Here. Not tomorrow, not after one more email. Here." On the anniversary of that scream in the garden, Graham hung a new photo above the fireplace. Lily between them. Rosa on one side, him on the other, 3 hands linked like a promise nobody could break. Under it, he placed the old iron master key Rosa kept on a ribbon by the door, not as a symbol of a house, a symbol of who gets to protect what's inside. And if this story stirred something in you, especially if you've ever loved a child, or felt overlooked or trusted the wrong person, take it as a gentle warning and a hopeful push. Don't wait for proof to love louder. Show up while you still can, because sometimes the real miracle isn't getting your sight back, it's finally choosing to see. The following spring, the Hart House didn't feel like a mansion anymore. It felt like a place where people healed on purpose. Graham Hart started doing the quiet work nobody applauds. He showed up to Lily's vision therapy. He learned the layout of the grocery store so he could narrate it for her like a tour guide. "Aisle 3, kiddo, crunchy carrots, your favorite," he'd say, and Lily would grin like she'd won the lottery. And every night before the lights went out, Rosa Diaz would hang that old iron master key by the front door. Then Graham would tap it twice like a ritual. "Doors stay locked to the past," he'd whisper. Only love gets in. One evening, Lily padded into the hallway. Hair wild, glasses off, voice small. "Daddy, are you here?" Graham was already there. Not rushing. Not distracted. He knelt, opened his arms, and Lily walked straight into them like she finally believed the world could be safe. Rosa watched from the doorway. No uniform. No shadows. Just family. Sometimes the real blindness isn't in the eyes. It's in the choices we delay assuming we'll make it up later. If you still have time, use it. Call your child. Check on your grandkid. Tell someone plainly I'm here, because money can replace almost anything, except a missed moment. Now, tell me in the comments, who was your Rosa in life, or who do you need to be that person for? And if this story moved you, like, subscribe, and share, because the next video might be exactly what someone you love needs to hear.